name is Alex, and I drive Uber late at night. I've done it for a couple of years, mostly to cover bills, but I've learned that driving after midnight can show you a side of the city most people never see. What I'm about to tell you isn't made up. It's something I experienced myself one Friday night, and even now, thinking about it still makes my skin crawl. I had just finished a long double shift. My eyes were tired, my back sore, and all I wanted was to go home. Then a request came through. A pickup on the far edge of the city. I didn't recognize the name, but the fare was good, so I accepted. When I arrived at the location, the street was almost empty. Streetlights flickered weakly, and the usual distant hum of the city felt muted, like the world had gone silent. The apartment building was old, dark, and looming. Only a few windows had dim lights on. No movement. No sound. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I shrugged it off. Strange streets weren't unusual for late-night rides. Then, I saw him, a man standing at the corner, hands in his pockets, completely still. When he saw my car, he started walking toward the building. His pace was slow, deliberate. There was something off about him. He didn't look tired, didn't fidget, didn't glance at his phone like most people do. He just kept walking. I unlocked the doors and he got in silently, closing the door behind him. The interior light barely flickered. I could see his face, pale, expressionless, eyes locked on me. He didn't speak a word. I started the route. At first, it seemed normal. I drove. He stared out the window, completely silent. But then he pulled a small notebook from his jacket. I caught a glance at the pages. They were blank. Then he looked at me, and I got that sinking feeling that he could see straight through me. Like he knew every street I preferred, every late-night shift I'd ever done alone. I tried to make small talk. "Long night?" I asked, voice cracking slightly. Nothing. Just a soft hum, almost imperceptible. Then the GPS started acting weird. The route jumped across alleys, over lots, through spaces cars shouldn't be able to drive. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. He tapped the notebook lightly. I leaned forward. The page wasn't blank anymore. A single line appeared in bold black ink. "I know where you park your car when the city sleeps." I froze. The hum of the night outside felt heavier, like the streets themselves were closing in. I dropped him off at the edge of the city, where a few flickering streetlights marked the road. He stepped out, didn't look back, and disappeared into the darkness. Even now, I can't shake the feeling that someone was always watching. After that night, I tried to convince myself it was just a weird passenger. Maybe he had some strange hobby, some odd sense of humor. But over the next week, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched every time I drove late. Then it happened again. Another ride request from the same area, almost exactly the same time. The name was different this time. But when I arrived, there he was. Same posture, same motionless walk toward the car. My stomach twisted. I wanted to cancel, to run, but I didn't. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear of looking like a coward. He got in, silent as before. This time, he didn't take out the notebook. Instead, he leaned back and just stared. Not at me, exactly. More like through me, like he could see every route I had ever taken, every street where I parked late at night. I tried to focus on the road, trying to ignore him, but small things started happening. My GPS glitched, showing shortcuts through alleys I didn't recognize. Streetlights ahead flickered in strange patterns. My mirrors reflected movement that wasn't there. At one stoplight, I thought I saw him glance down at a folded piece of paper he hadn't shown me before. When I dared to ask where he wanted to go, he finally spoke. "Do you drive alone often?" His voice was calm, almost casual, but it carried a weight that made my throat dry. "Always alone?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, mostly," I admitted. He nodded once, as if confirming something I wasn't supposed to know. Then he tapped the side of the seat near me. When I looked, a small folded note had appeared. Not in his hands, not in the car before, just there. I opened it slowly. "Tonight, I watched you park. Tomorrow, I'll be closer." My heart pounded. I gripped the wheel so tight, my knuckles whitened. I dropped him off as quickly as possible, barely saying anything. He stepped out without looking back, disappearing into the shadows again. After that night, I started noticing small things that unsettled me, even when I wasn't driving. Tires turned in the alley behind my building. Shadows lingered just beyond the streetlights. At the gas station, I could swear someone was standing behind my car, watching me pump fuel. Every late-night ride, every empty street, felt like it could be him. I tried to avoid the area, but the requests kept coming from that edge of the city. Each time I felt a pressure building. Not a jump scare, not a ghost, just someone who seemed to exist entirely in the same space I did. Observing, learning, waiting. And I knew, deep down, that he wasn't going to stop. The next night, I forced myself to go out. I couldn't keep avoiding rides forever. I needed the money, but part of me also felt like I had to see this through. Maybe it was stupidity. Maybe it was curiosity. The requests came in. Same area. Same late hour. I hesitated for a moment before accepting. When I arrived, he was already there, standing at the curb, perfectly still as always. My chest tightened. I knew this wasn't just coincidence anymore. He got in without a word, shutting the door with that same deliberate calm. I tried to keep the conversation light. "Traffic is slow tonight," I said, trying to sound normal. He didn't answer. He only stared out the window, but I could feel the intensity of his gaze through the rearview mirror. Halfway through the route, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I'm already inside." I froze. My hands gripped the wheel so tight it hurt. "Inside," I whispered to myself. I looked around. Nothing. The city was empty. No one on the streets. No cars behind me. No shadows. Just me, him, and the quiet hum of the tires on the asphalt. Then I noticed movement in the back seat, subtle at first. A shift in the shadows behind the passenger seat. I turned slightly. He was leaning forward, just enough to point toward the glove compartment. Hesitant, I opened it. Inside lay a small, folded note. I swear I hadn't seen it there before. I unfolded it. "You can't hide in plain sight. My heartbeat raced, my mind scrambled. Who was he? How had he gotten into my car without me noticing? I had locked the doors, checked the windows, everything, and now he knew exactly where I parked every night. By now, I was gripping the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles white, trying to focus on the road. But then I realized the GPS was moving again, erratically. It wasn't following the streets. It was taking shortcuts through alleys, empty lots, even through fenced areas that I had no idea could be navigated by a car. Every turn felt unnatural, forced, like the city itself was bending around us. I finally spoke, voice trembling. Who are you?" He turned his head slowly, and for the first time he smiled. Not a friendly smile, one that made my stomach twist, like he was enjoying my fear. "Someone who notices," he whispered. "Someone who waits." By the time we reached the drop-off point, I barely remember pulling into the dimly lit street. He got out silently, looked back once, and disappeared into the shadows of the night. But when I reached my own parking spot later, the engine still running, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My car door was slightly ajar. Inside, on the driver's seat, was the notebook he had used before. Opened to a page I hadn't seen. "See you tomorrow." I didn't drive for 3 nights. I avoided that part of the city. Stayed home. Tried to shake the memory. But every night I kept seeing him in reflections. In empty streets, in the corner of my eyes when I thought no one was there. The thing is, he never did anything directly harmful. Nothing overtly criminal. But knowing that someone had been following me, learning my habits, waiting for the quietest hours when I was alone, it changed me. Every ride, every empty street, every flickering light reminded me that the city at night isn't empty. Someone, or something, is always there, watching, waiting. And I've never been able to drive alone after midnight again. Hi, my name is Jordan, and I work as a late-night delivery driver. I've been doing this for a few years now, mostly to cover bills, and I've gotten used to the quiet streets, the empty neighborhoods, and the kind of solitude that only comes when the city sleeps. But there are nights you never forget, and this was one of them. It started like any normal night. I had finished a long shift and picked up a delivery request from an address I didn't recognize. Maple Drive, number 23. No notes, just a standard order. The payout was decent, which is why I accepted without thinking twice. The drive out there wasn't far, but as I approached, I noticed how unusually quiet the street was. Not a car in sight, not a single dog barking. Just a soft hum of streetlights and the occasional rustle of trees swaying in the wind. The house itself looked ordinary at first. 2 stories, small front porch, one light flickering weakly above the door. But there was something about it that made my skin crawl. The windows were dark, except for a faint glow from upstairs. No cars in the driveway. No signs of anyone being home. I parked, grabbed the bag of food, and walked up to the porch. I knocked. Nothing. I waited a few seconds and knocked again, louder this time. Silence. I rang the doorbell. Still nothing. The faint upstairs light flickered and went out. I froze, feeling the first real pang of unease. I stepped back, telling myself I was just tired, that people leave lights on or go to bed early. Then I heard it. A floorboard creak from inside the house. Just one, soft, deliberate. My stomach sank. Another creak. Closer this time. I swallowed hard and called out, "Hello? Delivery here." No answer. Only silence, except for the distant hum of the streetlights and the wind rustling the trees. I debated walking away, leaving the food on the porch, but something stopped me. Maybe habit, maybe stubbornness. I had delivered to dozens of houses late at night with no problem. I stepped forward again and knocked, harder this time. Still nothing. Then came a faint thump from inside, like someone shifting a piece of furniture, followed by another floorboard creak, this one much closer, as if someone was moving toward the front of the house. My heart pounded. I stepped back, but my foot hit the porch step, making a small sound. Almost immediately, I heard it, a whisper from inside, soft, almost inaudible. "Who's there?" I froze. My mind raced. Was someone inside? Had they heard me coming? Was it a prank? I called out, "Delivery! Food delivery!" My voice trembled slightly, but there was no response. Only silence again, heavy and thick. Then, a light in the living room flickered on for a second, illuminating the room through the window. My eyes caught something I couldn't immediately process, shadows moving, like someone pacing slowly back and forth. I stepped back, my pulse spiking, telling myself it was just my imagination. But the shadows didn't stop. They moved with a rhythm, deliberate, almost mocking. I glanced down at the bag in my hands. Maybe I could just leave it and get out of there. But before I could move, the front door creaked open slowly. Just a crack. Not enough for someone to see me clearly, but enough to feel that someone inside was aware of me. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Then came another sound, a soft whisper from just inside the door. "Come in." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get in my car and leave. But something, curiosity, disbelief, a strange compulsion, made me step forward. I placed the bag on the porch, just in case, and peeked inside. The hallway was dark, the faint outlines of furniture barely visible. I could see the living room to the side, and for a moment I thought it was empty. But then I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the shadows, completely still, facing away from me. I froze. My mouth went dry. The figure didn't move, didn't acknowledge me, but the air felt heavier, as if someone was holding their gaze on me, unseen. I stepped back toward the door, my pulse racing. Then the figure turned, slowly, deliberately. I didn't get a clear look. The dim light barely outlined a tall, thin shape, the kind of silhouette that seems normal until you focus on it, and then it's terrifying. I jumped back, my hand hitting the porch railing. That's when the lights inside the house all flickered on at once. The kitchen, the hallway, the upstairs rooms. And then just as quickly, they went out. Absolute darkness, except for the faint glow from the streetlight outside. My stomach sank. I dropped the bag, backed toward my car, and fumbled with the keys. That's when I heard it again. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from inside, following me, Not running, not urgent, just walking, pacing, aware. My hand shook as I unlocked the door and threw myself inside the car, slamming the door behind me. I sat there for a moment, trying to catch my breath. Nothing. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I glanced at the porch one last time. The figure was gone. No shadow, no movement, nothing. Only the faint hum of the streetlight and the empty street. I drove away slowly, constantly glancing in the rearview mirror. Every sound outside made me tense. A branch falling, the wind against the car, a distant dog barking. By the time I reached the main road, I told myself it was over. It had to be. Maybe someone was playing a prank. Maybe the place was abandoned and I imagined the movements, the whispers. But the unease didn't end there. On my way back, the quiet streets felt unnatural. Every house I passed seemed to have eyes staring at me, though I knew they didn't. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? I delivered to a quiet house, and someone was inside. They would have laughed, or worse, dismissed it. When I pulled into a gas station to calm myself, I realized my hands were shaking too violently to hold the steering wheel properly. I grabbed a coffee from the pump machine, hands still trembling, and stared at the house's direction in the rearview mirror. For a moment, I swore I saw a shadow standing at the top of the stairs inside, not moving, just watching. My stomach lurched. The rest of the night, I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I stopped at a light, I checked the rearview mirror. Every time a car passed by, I jumped. I drove slowly back to the main road, convinced someone could be following me. But the streets were empty. The city was silent, and yet I could still feel that weight, that unseen gaze lingering. Weeks later, I finally returned to deliveries at night, but I never went near Maple Drive again. Even now, when I approach quiet suburban streets, when the city sleeps and I'm alone with the hum of the engine, I feel it. The awareness that something or someone watches, waits, studies, and perhaps even knows exactly where I will be. And I still don't know if it was a person or if it was something else. Hi, my name is Ryan, and I've been driving for Uber for a few years now. I've done countless night shifts, picking up drunk partygoers, late workers, and the occasional traveler. I thought I had seen everything, until one night changed the way I look at passengers and dark streets forever. It was a rainy Thursday night, the kind of night where the city feels empty and every sound is amplified by the wet asphalt. My phone pinged with a ride request. Maplewood Avenue, a part of town I rarely drove to. The pickup was at a small, dimly lit street corner with no visible address numbers. The app showed a single passenger. The payout was higher than usual, which I always knew was either a really late-night long ride or trouble. I arrived to see a man standing under a flickering streetlight, mid-30s, dressed in dark clothes, an umbrella in hand, and a hood partially covering his face. He didn't wave or call out. He just nodded at me and got in without saying a word. The back door closed with a soft click, and I started driving. At first, the ride was quiet. The rain drummed lightly on the roof of the car, and the sound of the windshield wipers filled the silence. I glanced at the passenger in the rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at me, just staring straight ahead, expressionless. I tried small talk. "Long night?" I asked. No response. I tried again. "Where to?" The man leaned slightly forward, almost whispering, and said a street I didn't recognize. I checked the GPS. It wasn't showing the street as a valid destination. I frowned, but shrugged. Sometimes, the GPS can be glitchy. I followed the directions, turning onto streets I didn't know, narrow and dark, lined with houses that seemed abandoned. Then the first strange thing happened. I felt it before I saw it. A subtle movement in the back seat. I glanced briefly, but there was nothing. Maybe the rain hitting the windows, I told myself. But then I heard it. A faint tapping sound, like fingernails brushing the leather seat. I froze, heart hammering, and asked, "Are you okay back there?" No answer. I kept driving. Every street he directed me to was more isolated than the last. The GPS kept recalculating, sometimes showing paths that didn't exist, roads cutting through empty lots or ending in what looked like abandoned driveways. I started to feel that familiar pit in my stomach, the one that screams danger. The rain slowed, but the darkness became heavier. Streetlights flickered inconsistently, some illuminating the empty road for a moment, others barely lighting anything at all. I noticed another detail. Every time we passed a house, curtains would twitch, even though the streets were empty. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was my imagination. Then he spoke again, quietly, calmly, as if reading my thoughts. "Take the alley. It's shorter." I glanced at him through the mirror. He smiled faintly. It wasn't a comforting smile. It was precise, almost knowing. I hesitated, but I followed his suggestion, turning onto a narrow path, flanked by old brick walls. The alley seemed longer than it should have been. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls. My pulse quickened. That's when I noticed movement outside the car. Figures. Or maybe one figure, trailing at a distance. Not running, just following, keeping pace with the car. Every time I blinked or shifted my gaze, the figure would seem closer. I told myself it was paranoia, but the wet streets reflected shapes too clearly. Someone, or something, was watching. The passenger didn't notice. He just sat there, calm, occasionally glancing at the windows, like he expected me to see what I was seeing. I swallowed hard, gripping the wheel tighter. Finally, he said, "Stop here." I pulled into what looked like a clearing in the middle of an abandoned residential area. No lights, no buildings that seemed occupied, only the occasional broken street lamp. He stepped out, closed the door softly, and didn't look back. I watched him disappear into the darkness, a part of me wanting to call out, to ask where he was going, but something told me not to. The air was too thick, too quiet, too wrong. I sat there for a few moments, listening. The soft squelch of wet asphalt under invisible footsteps reached my ears, and then silence. I finally started the car and drove slowly away. Every instinct screamed at me to look behind to see if someone was following, and each glance in the rearview mirror made my heart jump. At one point, I thought I saw a figure standing at the edge of the street, watching. But when I blinked, it was gone. The rest of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. Every empty street, every flickering street lamp, every shadow made my pulse spike. I didn't get another ride for the rest of the shift. I went home early, checking the locks on my doors and windows more times than I can count. Even weeks later, whenever I drive alone at night, especially on unfamiliar streets, I feel it, the awareness of someone watching, someone knowing exactly where I am. And sometimes, in the corner of my vision, I swear I see him again, calm, smiling faintly, waiting silently for the next ride. I don't know who he was, why he was there, or what he wanted. All I know is that night changed the way I see passengers, streets, and quiet darkness. Sometimes, the most ordinary rides are the ones that leave you haunted.